Hi friends, and welcome back into my studio. If you are new here, my name is Tammy Ernest and I am a long arm quilter, and here on my channel I like to share customer finishes as well as my own personal projects. I wanted to show you my new t-shirt. My husband surprised me this week and I had two shirts from Fancy That Design House that showed up. Actually, what was so funny is I had an order started in my Fancy That Design House cart, and I had a t-shirt just like this one in my cart, and I had a new phone case in there because I got a new phone several months ago and I just have a plain plastic case on it. So I had a new phone case in there and a couple other things in there. So when this package arrived, I'm like, I don't remember finishing my order. I thought I hadn't finished it yet, you know? So when I opened up the order and I had two t-shirts in there, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think I ordered that. And so I asked my husband and he said yes, he had heard me talk about it. And so he ordered me a couple t-shirts. So this is one, the other one is in this orangey color, and I'll wear that another time, but I'm loving it. This is in the medium size. You can order direct from Fancy That Design House website. I don't have any affiliation with her at all. I just love her stuff. And so loving that. So fun. And so I want to get a hold of that. I just think the colors are so pretty and just love it. So I wanted to share that with you. Today is part 2 of the tools that I use in my sewing room here in my long arm room every day, and just wanted to share those with you. Thank you for your great response from last week's video, and also how did you like that electric fabric cutter? If you didn't see that, I put out a shorter video late last week and it was all about the electric fabric cutter. I love it. Just zips right through. Been cutting minky, been cutting my battings, wide backings. It works wonderful. Absolutely love it. So you'll want to go back and check out that video if you've not seen that one yet. But let me go ahead and share with you some other tools that I use in my sewing room every day, and then we'll go on to customer quilts today. So this one I shared not too long ago. But I just want to let you know I'm still loving that. This is a vacuum on one end and a blower on the other end. And the reason that I purchased this was because I usually use canned air to blow out the bobbin case area of my long arms. And I was tired of buying canned air. So I thought, there's got to be a better way. You know, it's just compressed air. So how could I get that instead? So I went looking for something that had the blower and found this one, and not only does it have the blower, but it has the suction on the other end. Now I have the attachments on here, and I leave these on here all the time, but other than that, it's got a filter. You can see I've got some junk in there right now. Now what I am finding with the suction on this end, that it pretty much has to be straight on. So this works great on the floor or a quilt top if I have things that I'm sweeping up, or vacuum sweep. We're not going to get into that. If I am sucking up, well, let's try that one. Just little lint pieces or things off the floor. I'm finding that it really needs to be a pretty tight suction for it to work. So I tend to, with my bobbin case, I'll use this first. I'll use that a little bit, and it gets some of the stuff, but I really find that the blower really does a nice job of blowing out that bobbin case. And then everything then that lands on the floor, I can use this side and clean up the floor. So when cutting minky, I'll use this right after I cut the minky, clean up the floor there, and you know, anytime. I like it because it's so handy. You know, a couple times a day, even if I need to, I can go around my floor and just suck up those little lint balls that happen around my long arm room, and I don't have to pull out the big sewing machine. So loving this. I did just purchase it on Amazon. I will put a link down below. This is what it looks like. It does come with a plug-in, so you can plug it in when it gets low, and then this filter also comes off, so you can clean that. And I think it came with a second filter. I haven't even used the second filter. Yeah, it comes with a whole second filter, comes with some other attachments. I've not used those at all. I've really just kept the ones on that you're seeing here, and I keep those attachments on there all the time. So loving that. That is something, great purchase, and I use it all the time. Second thing let me show you today are the pins that I use. Well, two things. Let me show you just two things at once. So when I am loading a quilt on the long arm, I do it two ways. The backing I will load with red snappers. Now I only have one set of red snappers, but one set of red snappers will do 3 lengths of your bars, and I have the 12-foot section or 12-foot set. So what I mean is, if I had a red, there's a little red, it's up in that one. I can't show you, they're all in there, but there's a little red tubing that go inside the casing of your leader, and that little red casing or that little red tubing then snaps onto this, so it's the same size of that. Now, so you have enough red snappers to do 3 lengths because you have 3 bars. Now, I only load the backing this way. So I have 2, actually on this machine, I have 2 of those red tubings on this machine for the backing. So on the machine on my left, I completely load the backing with red snappers. Because I only have one set of red snappers, then the 3rd section of red tubing is on the back of this machine, and I actually pin this part of the backing onto this machine. I could purchase a second one. I know I'm going to get texts. I know I'm going to get comments about, you should try the zippered leaders, you should try the magnets, and I know, I just have not done it, and at some point I will. I'm just using what I have right now. So this set of red snappers came when I bought, this machine. I bought this machine used from someone who had it just a short amount of time, and the red snappers came with that, and so I've been using them ever since. So you have 3 lengths of red snappers. You have the longest ones, then you have middle size, and then the short little ones I use just to position the quilt, and then I use these 2 sizes to finish snapping it on. Now, with my arthritis, I do have some trouble if I am snapping onto just the bar here. It's very difficult for me to push down. I usually load my quilt from the back side so that I have that back table then, so I have my backing fabric and I can set the red snapper where I want it, and then I can push down with my whole hand and not just my fingers. When I'm working just on the bar, that's when I have to use just my fingers, and it is a little more, it hurts a little bit more. But when I'm loading that piece of my backing, which is the back side of it, I go around to that side of the table and I press down on the table, and it's much easier. Now on this machine, because one of them I am loading on the front, I do have to push down on the bars, but at this point that's what I'm using. So red snappers, I use these every day, all day long, and I've really enjoyed them. Now the other thing I use is pins, because I pin my top. I never use the red snappers on my top. I always pin the top. And on this machine, I am pinning this, the backing on this bar. So these are the pins that I use. I've used these forever and ever and ever. They're the white head at the top, the glass head at the top, the long ones. These are probably 2 inches long. And that's what I use to take big chunks when I am pinning. I usually pin through the leader first, and then into the backing fabric or the quilt top, whichever I'm doing, but I always pin into the leader first and take big long sections. And I usually start, when I pin, I start from the middle and work to one side, and then I go back to the middle and do the other side. So I'm spreading that out. I just have these in, it's this was actually a decoration, but it's like, it was a pumpkin at once. It had a nice stem at once, but it's just filled with fiberfill, I'm sure. And it was just nice and big, fit all my pins, and I loved it. So it's out here all the time, and that's what I put my pins in. Now, this orange section right here is where I put bent pins, or I put little colored pins that may come in, anything that I'm not going to use to pin. So in this section, that's what I've got. So I've got smaller little pins that may come in on a client quilt where they've pinned a little note to the quilt top or something like that, and I'll put those on this side. And then I know that these in this section I don't use for pinning on my quilt top, but I can use those for other things. I have a batting left over, and I need to mark how big that is, and I'll make a little note, and I'll use these pins here. So I have a certain section that I know don't pull from that, And if anything gets bent along the way, that's where it goes, is in that orange section. So use that every day as well. Another thing, my little snippers. Now these are nothing fancy. I mean, I think I got these at a box store, honestly. They're Fiskars, little spring-loaded snippers, and this is what I use to clip my threads. Nothing big, little pair, and I'm sure there's specialty ones out there for clipping threads or long arming. I don't know. I've had these for a very long time, and they've worked very nicely. I like the nice sharp point. I like the smallness of it. I can get in there nice and tight, and it's not, the motion is very easy. It's just a squeeze, spring-loaded, and like I said, these are Fiskars, but this is what I use for all my clipping. You know, if I'm basting, if I'm finishing up the end of a row, whatever, this is what I'm using all the time. All right, three more things. You need a seam ripper. I don't care what kind you get. And a lot of times my seam rippers I get from my Sew Sampler box that comes from the Fat Quarter shop. Every 6 months or so, maybe they might include a seam ripper. So a lot of times I'm just using whatever the latest one is. I don't even know. This one was more one of those ergonomic. This is a Dritz one, so more of an ergonomic handle. I know I've probably got one of everything that there is out there. But it's one of those notions I usually don't buy on my own. I wait for it to come in a box. But you're going to need a seam ripper. I don't care how good of a long arm quilter you are, you're going to end up picking out something at some point. And let me just tell you, picking out always takes 3 times as long as putting in. So just part of the job, but you'll need a seam ripper too. All right, 2 more tools that I use all the time. You might have heard me talk about these before. This is Snag Magic, and this is a Canadian company. This is the only place that I've seen these. I don't know, I'm sure there's other brands or something out there, but I have purchased these through snagmagic.com, and I'll show you what they are in just a second. They come 2 to a vial like this, and this is how you bury your threads. So I'll pop the end of it off and show you. I've only got 1 left in here. Occasionally I've had where I get one stuck in there and I have to clip the end of it to get it out. I don't know why that happens, but anyway, Snag Magic. This is how you bury threads. So this is a long needle, if you can see that. Let me put this down. It's a long needle. On the end of this needle is a little wire loop. This is almost like fishing type line or something like that. It's got that type of a heaviness, but it's very thin. So what you do is if you need to bury a thread, you have your 2 threads, your bobbin thread and your top thread. You pull those to the top. You're tying a knot. I usually do it, within 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch of where it comes out of the fabric at. And then I leave a nice long tail on the end. So you tie that knot. You then put that thread through the loop there at the end. You take the needle down right at the spot where those threads come out of the fabric. You take it in, run it maybe 1 inch or 2 underneath the fabric, but not through to the bottom. So you want to get it stuck in the batting there somewhere. And as you're pulling, you make sure that that thread is through the loop, and then it'll pull that loop in and through the fabric, and then your knot will get buried inside of that batting, and then the part that comes out the other little hole that you've made, then you clip it off right there. Now normally I try not to have to bury threads in the middle of a pass. I really, really like it if I can start a pass, go all the way to the other end, and not have to do any thread changes in the middle. However, sometimes thread breaks, sometimes the bobbin runs out because I wasn't paying attention, and then I have to start something in the middle of a pass. I still set my machine to do a tie-off, where it'll do a couple back stitches, one way and then the other to tie off those things. And I still feel like sometimes I need to bury those threads. I don't do it all the time, but sometimes it still feels like that knot is just a little loose, and I will go ahead and just create another, or that tie-off is just a little loose. Or perhaps it's the stitches that I'm, where the old stitching, you want to say, I just did it, but the old stitching has stopped and then I'm starting a new one. Sometimes if there's not a good overlap where I'm putting new stitches on top. I usually try to, so if my stitching is stopping here, I'll try to back up and start my other stitching, my new stitching back a little ways, so it does a little back stitch and then goes over the top of that. Sometimes you don't get it quite on there, and sometimes I'll pull the old stitches out a little bit and tie those off and bury those. So I don't bury threads all the time, but when I do, this is what I use. It's a great little tool. They come 2 to a little vial. I'm not being able to show that very well. 2 to a little vial. I have occasionally where this little end piece will get stuck and I can't pull it all the way through. I don't think it's anything to do with the needle. I think it's either my knot was too big, or I've gotten stuck on something inside there. And so occasionally I do have to, I'll back it back out. It's very hard to back it all the way out, but I'll back it out enough that I can clip this loop and pull it out, but then it's no good anymore. So I usually have 2 vials of these on hand. I'm down to 1 in this one, and I don't know if I have another vial over there or not. Just because occasionally it gets stuck in there and I have to clip that little loop to get the needle out, and then that one's no good anymore. I have to throw it away. But snapmagic.com, and I will link that down below. But great tool. This was one of those that was suggested by one of my business buddies, and I've really liked it. A great way to bury threads so that you're not having that knot sitting on top or a knot sitting on bottom. One more tool I want to show you. These are called threadostats. These are not scissors. These are, they look like scissors, but this is blunt at the end, and the 2 pieces come directly, I don't know if you can see that, on top of each other. So how I use these is if I get a thread stuck in my bobbin case, or underneath my machine when I'm cleaning up, when you're cleaning out underneath your machine, sometimes you'll get threads caught up in your gears in there, and it's very nice to have these threadostats because you can reach in there. It's nice and long. You can see how long that is. I can reach in there and I can grab a hold of those threads and pull them out without clipping them, and that is what I like so much about these. So they have a little locking feature here. I don't lock that because I feel like sometimes it's hard to get undone. It's almost like a little teeth thing, and it works and I can get them undone. But a lot of times I just leave them like this, and I have them in my cart over there in one of the, right next to like the pins and things, so they're standing up straight, and I can just pull those out. They're not sharp at all, and if I have threads that I need to pull out, I just use these. This originally came in a Sew Sampler box again, so I love that subscription to the Sew Sampler box, because you find little tools that you just didn't know you needed, and then you can't live without once you have them. And so threadostats, I really enjoy these. These help me pull threads out that I can't get to very easily, especially underneath your machine. If things get wrapped up in there, I would check that every so often, because I think that can mess up, especially if you are running digital. I think that can mess up sometimes some stitches skipped, or some places where it's not quite connecting. It's because you've got some threads in there that are keeping those gears from turning. So threadostats are a great tool as well. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more tools that I use every day. None of them are super expensive. Probably of everything I've shown you today, the red snappers are probably the most expensive thing, and then maybe the vacuum blower would be after that. Everything else is not very expensive, but very useful in your long arm room. So there you go. That's all the tools that I use. If you didn't get on the first half of that, it was published last week, and so you'll want to go back and watch that video. Little family update over the weekend. Maggie and Spencer were in. They flew in on Friday night. They were supposed to be in like dinner time Friday. We had great plans. We're going to get pizza and sit at the airport. We love to sit in the parking garage on the very top where you can watch the planes come in and all of that. We had great plans. We were going to sit and have pizza, watch the planes, you know, once they got in. That all got messed up. There were storms between here and Minnesota that day, so their first flight was delayed, which meant they missed their connection flight and they had to sit in the airport for several hours. Then there were more storms that came through later in the evening, so then that plane was delayed getting in. So what was originally supposed to be like a dinner time arrival ended up being 1 in the morning. And so we didn't get home. We didn't even get to bed until, oh, it had to have been 2:30 because we're a good 45 minutes to an hour away from the airport. So it was about 2:30 before we got to bed that night. We had had a coffee date with the girls planned. It was going to be my 3 daughters and myself. We had to cancel that. I was, of all the things that happened, I really, really was sad about that. But one of the daughters brought, Holly brought coffee to us. She just brought it here, but I missed that connection, just girl time. But we had a wedding to go to, so everybody met here in the morning. We all got ready, went to the wedding, beautiful wedding. Oh, so happy for the couple. It's one that we've been praying for quite a while, and God finally put it together. So excited about that. And then as soon as the wedding was over, I invited all of the family back home here. We had dinner here, so everybody was home, all the kids, all the grandkids. My dad even joined us for a while there and just had a wonderful time. And this was kind of our Mother's Day celebration because we did not get together on Mother's Day. And so my husband had brought flowers to me. And one of the special things the kids did, they sang my favorite hymn, all of them together. So we have a piano. All my girls play the piano. Actually, all my all my sons-in-law play the piano as well. And so they played the piano and they all sang my favorite hymn. It was so special. I really liked it. The only bad part was right in the middle of all the singing, Ellie fell and banged her cheek. So, but that happens with little kids. So fun to have these little ones around. I'm loving it, loving it. Maggie's doing great. She looks wonderful. She's got her little baby bump there. They told us the name of their little girl, and so that was very exciting. And then the other thing we did over the weekend is we got to go to the track, the Indy 500 track. I don't know what it is, guys. I love it. I love the atmosphere. I love the loud. I love the cars. We were there on a practice day where all the cars were out. We got to see practice pit stops. We got to see, passing on. I just love everything about it. Love it. Just a couple hours long. So we did that, and then we went and had dinner at Seth and Holly's house. So really enjoyed that as well. Just a great weekend. Maggie and Spencer left yesterday. They did get back. Still had some storms in the area again. Their flight from Indy was a little bit delayed, but they thankfully made it within. She told us last night that from the time they got out of their seat on one plane and into the seat on the other was 16 minutes, and that was in the Minneapolis airport. She said they had a golf cart for part of the way. They ran the other part of the way. I don't know how she did that being as pregnant as she is, but made it to their connecting flight and made it home and were able to rest at home last night. So very thankful for their visit. Just such a blessing. Just such a blessing. And Emily, she's the other one that's pregnant right now. She's due in December and she's still not feeling real great. So, but she'll get there. But just a great weekend. I hope you have had a wonderful time. The weather's getting nice. And then we have a cold one. The day we were at the track, it was sunny, mid-70s, absolutely gorgeous. And then the last 2 days have been cold and rainy, so it was perfect timing. But there's a little family update for what's going on around here. And it's now back to longarming and all the normal stuff here. So it's been a really good time with family. So I hope you're having a great week as well. And let's move on to client quilts because you're going to love some of these today. This is Joni's quilt, and Joni said she loosely used the pattern called Here Comes Santa Claus, C-L-A-W-S, and this uses the Kitty Christmas line that's been so popular here lately. And she said she started out doing it this way. She started out appliquing the Kitty Christmas like it calls for in the pattern, and then decided not to do that. She ended up using the panel instead, just to put right here in the middle. Great idea. She did not want to do this pattern uses the drunkard's path ruler, and she decided not to do that as well. So she loosely used this pattern and created her own. Wonderful job. So she's put the panel in the middle, and then she has made these snowball blocks all around the rest of it. So 1, 2, 3, 4 snowball blocks high for the panel, 2 deep on either side. I think you can see that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 across the bottom, and there's 2 rows of that, and across the top. So to make a snowball block, you have your, it could be a 10-inch square, it could be an 8-inch square, whatever size square you want, and then you're adding easy corner triangles on all 4 sides. And that creates your snowball block. And so she has used all different colors or all different fabric lines on this. She did use some of the Kitty Christmas. She did use Swell, which is the one that had the Santa Claus, if you remember that one. She also used Sweet Christmas. She also used some Holt fabric. So just picked the colors, the Christmas fabric. Some of them even don't necessarily have to be Christmas fabrics, but they blend with the colors very nicely. So all those snowball blocks, and then you can see the sashing around every block. The sashing is not between the blocks. The sashing is actually around every snowball block. So like a 1.5-inch sashing finishes at 1 inch. And this is from the Kitty Christmas line. This is the white background with the red snowflakes, little green pin dot on it. And so that is around every snowball block. And then she created all those blocks, put all those blocks together, and put it around the panel itself. Now, the neat thing that you can't tell on this, but that I know, is that Joni pieced this entire thing by hand. She is a hand piecer, and oh my goodness, I almost hate that I quilt it and you hide all that in the back, because her stitching is impeccable. Oh, I mean, her stitch length is perfect. Wow. I don't know. She just amazes me. So every one of these blocks, everything you see, was pieced together by hand. And like I said, I almost hate to cover it up with my quilting. Backing fabric, this is a Shannon Cuddle. This is in the saltwater. I just looked it up. Why do I forget so easily? This is in the saltwater color. So not quite an aqua, not quite a blue. It's a good in-between, and you can see how well it matches some of those snowman fabrics there. Beautiful. I just love the feel of a minky. If you're wanting to keep a quilt soft and snuggly, I would suggest putting minky on the back. Even with a denser quilting, I think when you put a minky on the back, it just keeps it much softer, much more snuggly. If you're wanting a quilt that's going to be beautiful on a bed with a lot of dense quilting, then I think a regular cotton is fine on the back. If you're wanting something a little snugglier, is that a word? A great choice is to put a minky on the back. It certainly does that. So you can see the pantograph on the minky. So Joni asked for Joyful Angels. This is a new pantograph to me. I did find this on Urban Elements. And she said, Joni said her faith is very important to her. This is a quilt that she's going to be keeping for herself. And so she asked that we do angels on it. And perfect fit for a Christmas quilt, the angels, but also just to represent her faith. And I think that's really great. So the angel itself is bigger than the span of my hand. So probably 6-8 inches there. There's a little smaller angel and then a larger angel. That's stitched out so nice. The wing of this one then comes in, does the wing of this angel here, a star sitting on her wing tip, goes up and does the head, the halo, the other wing does her skirt, a star in the middle of that, a star off the edge of that, and then it comes back out, does a star in the meander over to the next one. and just beautiful. It just looks like a whole chorus of angels singing across the back of this quilt. For the thread, I did use the Omni Natural White. That blends very nicely with the white fabrics on the front. And as always, it just soaks into the backing of the Minky. You don't even see the color of the thread on the back. So great idea if you were a little overwhelmed by appliquing this Kitty Christmas onto the front of the of another quilt like is shown in the pattern. Then just start with a panel and put it in the middle and do your own blocks around it, just as Joni did. Again, this would be a great application of using the EQ8, the Electric Quilt 8, where you could put in the size of your panel, you could figure out what blocks you wanted, and the sizing of the sashing and all of that. And then EQ8 will give you your fabric requirements. It'll show you the cutting instructions, but it's not going, it'll show you a diagram of the cutting of your fabric, but it's not going to give you instructions on how to piece it together. That's where you as the quilter comes in. That's where your intellectual property, you know, comes into play, is that you are then adding those instructions. And that's what others are doing when they're creating quilt patterns. They're going in there and creating a quilt pattern, but then they are providing their expertise in writing well written instructions for you to follow for patterns. So a great application for using EQ8 if you want to design your own quilts, just as Joni did. And if you want to do hand piecing like Joni did, you're gonna have to talk to her, because I am just I'm in awe of how she hand pieced this. So beautiful, so beautiful. All right, that is Joni's quilt. I have 3 quilts to share with you that Diane sent to me. Now, Diane is a certified instructor for Studio 180, which is the Deb Tucker rulers. And so the 3 quilts I'm going to show you, she either uses as class samples as she's teaching classes, or she uses in trunk shows as she visits guilds. And so I will leave her information down below. But this first pattern is called Tumbling Triangles, and this is a pattern that is or was created by Studio 180, which is Deb Tucker. So this quilt measures 53 by 53, and Diane has done it in Hoffman batiks that she had in her stash, so she has done it in purples. And notice how the Tumbling Triangles quilt is more of a modern setting. It has the dark is concentrated down here in the bottom right. The light is concentrated in the top left. Now notice in the pattern cover how they've done it in reds and whites, very pretty. And then Diane has done hers in purples, and these are batiks. So the darker batik is more of a black with the purple print on it, and then the other ones is just a light lavender, kind of a mottled kind of color. So this pattern uses the V block ruler, which is one of Deb Tucker's rulers, and this is what that one looks like. So you can see the obvious shape in here. Well, it looks like the triangle is inside of a kind of like a 4-inch or 5-inch square. Now notice the ruler comes with all different sizes. You don't have to buy one ruler for each size quilt that you're doing. So this one will work on many different sizes, but it looks like the block that Diane has done is about a 5-inch square with that triangle in the middle. Very, very cool. So the pattern itself you can make in a wide range of sizes. From a wall hanging that's like 13 by 13, 27 by 27, 40 by 40, 53 by 53, 67 by 67, or 80 by 80. So Diane has made the one that's kind of in the middle there. So you have a dark fabric, a light fabric, your backing fabric, and then your binding. So you're really just doing 2 colors on the front. For the backing fabric, she sent me I think this is one of the Free Spirit lines. You can see she Diane uses a lot of the same colors on the back, the black, because that shows up the quilting really well, and I appreciate that as she's showing those as class samples. So this backing is it's a two-toned, a little lighter circles, like dots all over that. It may be hard to see, but a black backing. So the pantograph on this one, we threw around different ideas because a quilt like this is a little difficult to decide on pantographs. And so there's a lot of negative space, but the whole feel of this is the triangles like are tumbling down. That's the name of the pattern. But like they're settling down and they're stacking up over here in the corner and they're continuing to fall down. So I sent to Diane, I sent some ideas, and I told her, I said, I think I'd like to try something a little different. Something that gives the feel of falling, something that gives the feel of that movement going from top to bottom, and not doing a pantograph that goes left to right. Now, pantographs stitch out left to right because that's how our machines work. You know, our throat space is from left to right. So what I actually did on this one was turn the quilt this direction, knowing I did look up the pattern prior to doing the long arm quilting because I wanted to see what direction this quilt is oriented. So I knew that the darker fabric was oriented towards the bottom right, but I wanted this pantograph to stitch out so it feels like the blocks are falling. So this is called Good Vibrations, and you've seen Good Vibrations before where it's just a wave. This is Good Vibrations Offset. And what that means is our waves are not, what's the word? They're not uniform across the quilt. We have some waves that are further apart, some waves that are closer together. You can see how they're coming very tightly together right here. They're spreading back apart. So this is a pass right here. And so it gets larger, gets smaller, gets larger, gets smaller, larger, like that. When you repeat the pattern down the quilt, then it fills in very nicely. Nothing is crossing over. It fills in that negative space very nicely. Those waves fit up very nicely, and it's hard to tell where that pantograph goes. Now, or where that pantograph, you know, where you're switching from one row to another. Now the thing with the Good Vibrations Offset, this is an extended width pantograph, and what that means is when you pull it up into your program, you're going to have different choices. An extended width means it has already been multiplied by the designer for the width of the quilt that you are using. So when you pull it in, there may be, and I forget the exact dimensions, but you'll have a width that's like 42 inches. You'll have a width that's maybe 60 inches. You'll have a width that's probably 75, 100, 120, something like that. So you're actually clicking on the width that would be wider than your quilt, or however you do your long arming. I do mine where I go off the sides. So the size of this one, 53 by 53, is that what I said? Yeah, so I chose the width that was 60 inches. There's no need to repeat your pattern on the horizontal, okay? You pull in the width that is the width of your quilt. You're not having to repeat it, match up anything. You pull up the width that's already fit for your quilt. And then I just multiply the number of rows that I needed to fill the quilt this way. So the quilt, it stitches out left to right, but then when it is oriented to the way the pattern is written, when it's hung on a wall, when it's used as a class sample, that pantograph looks like it's going from top to bottom. It looks like it's falling with those triangles. So just a different way of looking at pantographs. I've done this a lot with Barbie Mills' pantograph, the UFO one that she has. There's another one, a Valencia twist. You could do it with that one as well. The Good Vibrations ones, things that typically give you rows left to right, but if you want to orient them to a way that it gives your quilt a different feel, is to orient your quilt the other direction. Then when you hang your quilt up, it gives you that vertical feel. So that is Good Vibrations Offset. I did use Omni Light Gray on this one. It blends very nicely with the purples on the front. It actually almost takes on a little bit of that purple, that lavender, but then that blends nicely with the black backing Cream would have been bright. Maybe could have used a lavender, but I don't carry a lavender in my pre-wounds, and so I don't feel like I was gaining that much by switching to a lavender color thread. I think the gray really looks nice on there. So that is Diane's first quilt. That is Tumbling Triangles. Diane's next two quilts are exactly the same pattern, but she's done each one a little differently. So I'll start with a smaller one. And this pattern is called Garden Enchantment. Now this pattern was written by Tina Dillard of Quilting Affection Designs. I know in my stack of papers I have the pattern. Now this was written in order to use the Studio 180 rulers. So you'll want to look for patterns that not only the designers that are not only the Deb Tucker patterns that are on the Studio 180, but some of these other designers that are also using those rulers. So that's what Garden Enchantment looks like. This was written as a block of the month, but it uses 4 different Studio 180 design tools. So let me show you those. It uses the Tucker trimmer, and that is how you trim up half square triangles. It uses the wing clipper, and that's how you trim up flying geese units. It uses the square and a square. Squared is what this one is called, and that's how you trim up square and a square blocks. And then finally, it uses the V block tool, just like the Tumbling Triangles one. So those are the four tools that it uses. Again, with every one of these, you do not need to buy a ruler in every size, because all of the sizes are included. Maybe not all, sometimes there are a Tucker trimmer 1, 2, and 3, but you've got a good amount of sizes. Like this V block goes from 1.5 all the way up to 6.5 inches on that. On that one, the squared one is 1 to 6 inches. The wing clipper, this one goes up to 6 inches. And then also the Tucker trimmer, this goes up to 6.5. So then if you're getting into larger shapes, then you would move on to the larger tools in that one. All right, so this finished size is 65 by 65. This is called Garden Enchantment. It does say skill level is intermediate. I have linked the pattern down below for your help. It does use quite a bit of different colors of fabric. It says, well, you can see on this pattern cover, they've put in even a few more colors than Diane has. Diane went with some blacks, a white that's kind of a tone-on-tone white, some gray, some black, some teal, and kind of stayed within those color schemes and not done quite as many as is on here. But very fun. Uses all those different rulers. Square and a square, I can see that right here. Half square triangles right here, so that would be your Tucker trimmer. Is that the right one? Yeah. So your half square triangles, your flying geese units. So you're using all those different tools so that you get precise points. The whole point of the Tucker trimmers, the whole point of the Studio 180 rulers is you make your blocks a little bigger and you trim them down so they're absolutely perfect. And you're using these rulers to do your trimming. You're not wasting tons of fabric. This is like minuscule, okay? But you're creating your blocks just a little bit bigger and then trimming them so that they're absolutely perfect. Everything fits nicely. That's how you can get such an intricate pattern like this, because all the measurements, they work because you've trimmed them down to the exact size. And so then when you go to put your quilt together, everything works perfectly. So you can see the center here. We start with the center star. We've got some of these teal blocks around it, some other stars around that. I would say this is more of a medallion style quilt, and that then we have rows around that. Outside that we have a couple borders. You can see the white one, the gray one, then the black one that is a floral print, and then we start into these half square triangles, 2 colors on one side and then the white on the other side. We go to a light gray border and then the floral border all the way around the outside. So this one is the one that measures the 65 by 65. Very beautiful. Just love all the intricacy. The backing fabric, this is a black again. This shows off the quilting very nicely. And the quilting on this, we did espresso. Adds a very soft feel to this quilt. We do have some florals on the front, so I felt like the swirls and the ribbons went well with that. Kind of softens those sharp corners on the top, on the quilt top. On the front side, just adds a very elegant feel to the quilt. This is done in the light gray thread. And espresso, we've talked about many times. You can see it very nicely on the black. The spiral comes in, it does cross over itself so that you get that ribbon effect, like it's flipping over. I did do this fairly tight. This is probably 6 inches tall is the pass, and espresso does come up where the paisleys of one come up into the negative space of the row above it, so it really fits in nicely. Nice tight swirls, covers very nicely. And the light gray thread looks very nice on the back, but it also blends very well with the front. We've got grays on the front, the turquoise, it just looks really nice with that and just adds a nice softness to the quilt. So Diane does such a great job. That's why she's a teacher. She does such a great job. Her points are perfect, everything. And so if you take one of her classes or one of the other Studio 180 educators, they teach you how to use your rulers and how to get perfect points and all those measurements to add up. So that is her first Garden Enchantment quilt, and let me show you the second one and how she changed that one. So Diane's second Garden Enchantment quilt is the exact same center, all the same blocks, all the same rulers that she was using on that one. This one uses the borders that you're seeing here. This one is the exact, it looks like the exact same colors that is done in the pattern front. But then to change things up, Diane added a couple borders on the top and the bottom. She repeated some of the blocks from earlier in the quilt. So I'm going to pull this up here so you can see the row. Now this is across the bottom of the quilt and across the top of the quilt. So these blocks were in the pattern earlier. So you can see in the center of the pattern, the 4 blocks on the 4 corners of that middle medallion. So she repeated those blocks, put them in a strip along the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. Just outside, so she extended her borders on the edge, kind of cased this in, added some sashing in between those blocks, and then created another whole row on the bottom and on the top, not on the sides. The sides are the same. So this quilt measures, let me find my paper for this one. I just had it. Oh, here it is. Nope, that's the other one. All right, this one measures 77 by 97. So the other quilt ends right here, I think. I think it ends right here with this this batik border, the green one. And so then she's added another border, the purple border on the edge, and then repeating that green batik again, and encase the whole quilt in that. So the final one of this one measures 77 by 97. She said she used island batiks for this one, so the greens and the turquoise and the purples. The white is a white with gray dots on it, very cute that way. So just love it. You find a block inside the quilt that you like, that you want to repeat. You don't have to add more, you know, continuing with the rows all the way around, or in a medallion, you don't have to continue with all of those adding something on every side of it. You can do it like this, where you're just adding a row on the top and on the bottom, then encase all of that in a couple of borders to just, you know, to tie it all in together. And then you've not made the quilt that much more wide, but you've made it much longer, and so it can really fit the bed or wherever you're needing for that. Let me flip this back this way, and I can show you the backing on this one. This is the same backing that was on the Tumbling Triangles one, so it's has the it's like a circle, but it's all made out of dots. So if I can link that one, I will. Now the pantograph on this one, we had started out and decided we would use espresso, just like we did the last garden enchantment one. And I thought, you know, I don't like using the same pantograph on a second quilt unless the client asks for it. But I know that Diane was like, I don't know what to do on this one, you know, so we kind of agreed on espresso. But as I got closer to time of quilting, and I thought, I really don't. I want to do something different. So this one is called Tooled Leather. Now I know in your head when you hear tooled leather, you're picturing a leather belt or a leather purse, and this is a design that you would have on that. And I know with the name, that's what you kind of pictures in your mind. But when I saw this, to me, this is the same look as what's printed on the boutiques. And that's what I like about this one. I think this pantograph works really well with boutiques because it really has that same kind of a look as that. So no matter what the name of the pantograph is, if it matches the quilt that you're working on, I think it's a great one. So Tooled Leather is actually more of a block print, pretty squared off. Now, you know, it can nest up a little bit, but not terribly. But it is a good solid coverage across here. It's about this wide, so about 10-12 inches is one pass across there. So it has a little bit of swirls, but nothing super tight, nothing crossing over itself. It does just like, you know, maybe kind of an outline of a little leaf, a little tiny bit of a swirl, but then it stops and just comes back out. A little design there, you know, almost like you know, like a flower that's just coming up and you're just starting to get some of those leaves popping out there. So not even the full thing, but you'll have a little bit of a leaf and then the spiral comes out of that one. And I just really like this design on batik quilts. I think it matches a batik very nicely. I did use the light gray thread on this one. Again, not too bright on the back, but blends so well with batiks. I think gray just works really, really nicely as a neutral color on batik quilts. So 2 quilts done totally different fabrics, changed up a little bit, the same pattern, change it up a little bit, just repeating one of those blocks and making a larger quilt. And now Diane has 2 beautiful quilts to show in shops or in her quilt lectures or trunk shows that she gives. But then she can teach you how to do that as well. So you'll want to look up her information. So great job, Diane. This quilt is from DeeDee, and this is Peanut Butter Quilt from Then Came June. This is a free pattern, and let me show you what the pattern looks like. All right, so this is a free pattern. You do have to enter your email address to get that free pattern, but this is done by Megan Buchanan, thenCameJune.com, and I have linked that down below. So I love that DeeDee has turned this kind of into an I Spy quilt. So you see the pattern, it's doesn't necessarily show that, it kind of shows some different fabrics in there to get more of the modern type look, I guess you want to say, just by having everything. It's not uniform, or it's not, it's set on grid, but by adding different fabrics in there, different spots gave it a different look. And DeeDee kind of used the same pattern, but made it much more of a grid-like. All of the sashing is the same fabric instead of switching it up. I don't see any place that she switched to different ones. The cornerstones are all the green. And then she has fussy cut, the 5-inch squares or whatever size these are. It looks like about 5-inch squares. With all of these fun prints. So you have all those novelty prints that you would like to use, or you have little scraps of. Anything goes in this. And then the sashing is a blue, green, and purple dot, and then the cornerstones are the green. She's used some Tula pink fabrics around the outside edge. You can see those, the fairy dust one, and this is the hexagon type look, both in the turquoise type of colors. So all the novelty prints, I mean, she's included everything from snowflakes to monkeys to girls to, or those are like international type children, everything, crowns, flags, totem poles, ships, Winnie the Pooh, birds. I mean, it's just a little bit everything. A great I Spy quilt. I Spy quilts, if you're not familiar with those are just using fabrics where, you know, you could play a game with a little one and say, I spy a pink kitty, you know, and then the little one has to find that as well. So just one of those that hours upon hours could be spent looking at this quilt and finding all of those little details. Very pretty. This quilt measures 60 by 70. Now DeeDee sent a minky to put on the back. This is in the blue, that bright royal blue, I want to say there. I love it, love it, love it. The pantograph on this one is Soho. This adds in some circle shapes. On the front we've got some circles in our sashing, but other than that it's a very grid pattern, and so she asked for something circular. Soho is a great quilt, or a great pantograph. It's simple to stitch out, adds tons of texture, but it's just playful. It's just fun. It works on a majority of quilts. You know, it really could work on just about anything. So if you're looking for a pantograph that you can use on a number of different types of quilts, different styles, Soho is one that you'll want to get. So Soho just does, comes in, does a circle. Let's see, this is backwards because we're looking at the back, but it does the outer circle, just a loop in the center, and then when it comes out, it just comes to a point and then starts the circle down below, comes to a point, does the circle above, and so you're stitching in a zigzag fashion, and then the row below it stitches up into there as well. Now for the thread color on this one, let me grab the spool so you can see what color thread I used. So DeeDee had asked for a light turquoise, and I went with this one. This is beach grass, and kind of a little lighter on the green. Thought that blended really nicely. You really, with all the colors on the front, you don't see it too much. It blends very nicely with the border fabrics here. Those are pretty much the same color. And then on the back, that stitching just blends right into the minky. You do not see the stitching at all. You don't see the color of thread at all on the minky on the back. So this blends very nicely. Just a fun color, to add with all those prints on there. So that's what we did for that one. That is the Soho pantograph. And just a beautiful quilt. Again, measures 60 by 70 with the minky on the back. DeeDee's second quilt is just so gorgeous. So this is a pattern. She says she modified the Scrappy strips quilt along. This is done by Scrap Fabric Love. And here is what that block or that looks like. I have linked that website down below. Again, a free pattern, I think. And it says 72 by 72 without a border. and DeeDee's measures 80 by 81. Now she says she changed up a little bit, and she left me a long note here too, and I love this. I love to know the story of the quilt. So she says the pattern is a modified pattern from Kristen's Scrap Fabric Love on YouTube. It's called the Scrappy Strips Quilt Along. I modified it to add the animals and the Chinese zodiac, and I'll show you that down in a minute because it's across the top and across the bottom. So I'll show you that in just a second. She included the original pattern is attached. She said I had 3 of the animals on panels in my stash. The owl, the bear, so here's the bear. So the owl, the bear, and I lost my place, and the rabbit. There's some more here. All right, and so the rabbit. So those 3 she had in her stash. And she said the rest I took from a book called Patches of Australia by Deborah Brierly, or from Google. So one printing fabric is of a calla lily. Oh, right here. You can see that right in the front. She said, one printing fabric is of a calla lily. I dyed that myself and found it in my stash and wanted to use it, so it got in with all the animals. It fits perfectly, doesn't it? The black and white. So she has 3 that were from a panel. The others, she did applique shapes, and she pulled those applique shapes from this book called Patches of Australia. Very fun. So then the rest of these are appliques. So you can see the turtle here, the bird, the koala, there's a kangaroo, a snake, another turtle. But this one, she's done a blanket stitch around the outside edge. Some of the patterns are, some of this is like a zebra print, different patterns in different ones, but very fun. So that's where the animals came in. Then she says about the fabric, she says Kristen is big on using whatever she has, such as used blue jeans to make her quilts. She is helping the environment by not purchasing new fabric. So for this quilt, she said we had to use what we had. So I used fabric I found in my stash with only one exception, and that was the Chinese zodiac panels, which I purchased on Etsy. The black and white pattern fabrics are mostly Australian Aboriginal fabrics from Australia. Oh, wow. Okay. So, and the black and white prints that you see here, oh my goodness. She purchased those at a small shop in Shipshewana, which that is in Indiana, and the rest were from her stash. So very fun. So let me show you the Chinese zodiac. This is across the bottom of the quilt and across the top. And she has included those in squares across the top and across the bottom. Then she's got the black and white prints there, and then she's used other things from her stash. Hasn't she done a nice job putting this whole thing together? So the reds and the yellows and the oranges, and then the borders. I mean, wow, wow, wow. I love this effect with the red and the yellow done in different sections and how it moves in a wave across the quilt. Very, very fun. She's just done such a beautiful job on this one. Now, she asked for the backing fabric. She asked to purchase the gray minky that I carry. I don't know if you can see back there. I carry light gray minky, white, and the sand color. And so she purchased the light gray from me and added that on the back, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Can you see the pantograph on there? The pantograph is called Modern Meander, and I love, love, love. I love this. I like that it's set on point. Everything on the front of the quilt is very square, but we do have those little hints of the diagonal type of feel with that look right there. And so adding that, kind of repeating that little bit of a diagonal. I love this print. This so it's squares. They're just echoing in on themselves, rounded corners just a little bit, not terribly. The inside, it comes to a little, just a little loop there at the end, and then it comes back out and then does one down here. So again, you're doing it in a zigzag fashion. and I just love it. I love the texture. I love how this looks on the front of the quilt too. Minky just keeps it very soft, very pliable, very fun quilt to handle, and I just think it's absolutely beautiful. A lot of the fabrics, you've got lots of lines, lots of circles, lots of geometric type shapes, and I just love the diagonal feel that this adds into it, but then keeping with a lot of that geometric shape there. Love the texture. Love the texture on this one. I do believe I used a medium gray thread. Let me look just to be sure. Medium gray, so that's the Omni medium gray. I felt that blended a little bit better, a little darker than the light gray. We've got a lot of black and white prints here, and I didn't feel it was too dark on these. Just the whole tone of the quilt was a little darker gray here, a little more black here. So the dark gray really blended nicely. And again, on the Minky, you just don't see any of the stitch color at all, but you sure do see the texture, and I just think that is gorgeous. So her final quilt, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, I did think I said it at the beginning, 80 by 81, so practically square. She did a great job of using what she had on hand, and she put together an absolutely beautiful quilt. So DeeDee, you did a wonderful job on this one. Thank you for joining me today. If you are in need of long arm quilting services, my information is down below. You can download the long arm prep instructions and order form. Gives you all the information on how you can get your quilt to me. And I will be back here next week because every quilt is worth finishing. We'll see you then.